Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the official start of your weekend with a new episode of the Sports Trade. As always, Intern Cole here as your host, and I'm joined today once again by the man who goes by one name, Parcero Philly. Parcero, how you doing today, man?
Dude, I'm feeling great, man. It's a beautiful Friday, and of course, the start of the weekend, of course. And appreciate you having me on this episode, man.
Oh, I love having you on. So we got a lot to talk about today, so let's get right into it. Let's start off with the team that we don't talk about enough, probably. The Flyers. They don't get enough love. They don't get enough love, and I am 100% guilty of that. We all love the Flyers, but they don't get enough love. So, if you haven't heard yet, the Flyers hired head coach John Tortorella as their next head coach. So, Parcero, what are your immediate thoughts on Tortorella and how that could impact the Flyers?
I mean, look, I think that the overblown of this announcement is prevalent and obvious because we are Philly sports fans. But when I look at John Tortorella, he's not the sexy hiring because of the amount of teams that he's been playing for, and there's this notion that he just burns out in places, but the fact of the matter is, it does not matter who the coach is. There are some serious roster issues with this team. But when you're bringing in John Tortorella, one thing, if you've noticed the Flyers over the past couple seasons, is they do lack some discipline. And maybe a voice like John Tortorella will get the most out of the Philadelphia Flyers. One can only hope, but it doesn't matter who the heck is behind the bench. You could have Ed Sheeran back there, but you need to tweak this roster. There are some bad contracts. And then when you have in your top two lines some bottom line guys, like that's part of the problem as well. And I know injuries and the thing is you're going to the next season with some more injury question marks. Obviously, the main one being Ryan Ellis. You do not see him whatsoever. And you all know Ivan Provorov's struggle when he doesn't have a top line defenseman. So there are a lot of question marks, but I think overall this isn't the worst hiring, and I'm actually on board with this hiring overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy it too. Listen, I think John Tortorella has the perfect personality for this city. For a city, he's a tough personality. He doesn't take shit. He doesn't let his guys get away with being soft and stuff like that. So if he coaches like John Tortorella does, even if it doesn't necessarily get the wins, even if it doesn't work out and he doesn't get us a cup, it's going to bring in a level of discipline for a lot of the younger guys and a lot of guys that could use it. I mean, it's still a younger team, and they needed some discipline. And I think Tortorella was probably, I mean, he was my number two. My number one was Barry Trotz, obviously, but my number two is John Tortorella, and I'm more than okay with it.
Yeah, I was more on the line where, look, the NHL is a bunch of coaches who are retreads, essentially. They go between different clubs. I mean, obviously, you just saw Bruce Cassidy get signed right off the bat. He gets fired and then he gets hired in the same week, and that's just the life of an NHL head coach. I wanted to go in a different route, finding one of the coaches, but look, it's not the worst case scenario because look, there are some serious structural issues with the Philadelphia Flyers, and you bring in a Johnny Torts, and I think that he can bring some stability. And I'm with you, man. I think whoever is coaching this team, their top priority has to be finding and continue the development of some of these young players because there is a staple of them. And you look at Lehigh Valley as well. I mean, you got some more young pieces, and obviously you also have the number 5 overall pick. So I think that's going to be the big key, but you still need some other free agencies. And I don't know what the plan is. What is the plan exactly? We're doing aggressive retool. Like what exactly is going on? That's what I don't know either.
It's weird because it just feels like it just feels like post-COVID when we had the bubble, that team was so young, but they had enough older guys that brought the energy, and the younger guys didn't necessarily play up to the role that they needed to in the postseason. They got bounced in Game 7 of the Islanders, and we all felt great heading into next season. We dealt with injuries and dealt with a lot of COVID issues I guess it would be 2 seasons ago. So we kind of were looking this season, and I know you made a TikTok about it today or yesterday. I said it before the season. I thought the Flyers would be very good this year, heading into this past season. I thought they were going to be good, and boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong.
But to the point, I mean, like, you really do raise some good points, and that's why, like, it doesn't really matter what this coach is. This roster definitely needs to get better because you look in the playoffs, anything could quite honestly happen. You look at 2 years ago, the Blues were absolutely trash, and they wound up winning the Stanley Cup. Or I'm saying they're trash in the regular season, and then they wind up winning the Stanley Cup. So I think that when you're looking at sports in general in today's day and age, the young kids are so important. And you look at every single one of these teams in Philadelphia and you look at the state of some of these young players, how important it could be. I mean, you look at the Sixers with Tyrese Maxey, or the Phillies with Bryson Stott, or let's even go to the Philadelphia Union with a Paxton Aronson and a young bench that you have there. And that is important because, look, what was the problem with the Flyers? You had injuries. Who were the ones that were really injured? The older players. And it would have been really helpful to have some young kids who could step in the place, gain some serious minutes, and, can wind up being a big part in their career with your franchise.
Yeah, so the Flyers definitely have a lot to improve on, but I think this definitely was a step in the right direction with hiring John Tortorella. You mentioned the Union. Big news for soccer within Philadelphia and just the United States in general. Philadelphia will be a host city in the 2026 World Cup. You're the soccer guy, Parcero of DSN. You're the one who knows the most about soccer, and I don't think it's particularly close. And I know you were very happy, and you talked about how impactful and how much this means for Philly. So can you just go into that, how big of a deal it is?
I mean, for the city, this is going to be huge because you know how I feel about Philadelphia as a sports market. It is amazing. It's the most passionate fans, and I think that is going to be highlighted with watching matches being played in Philadelphia. And who knows what happens in a knockout rounds? Philadelphia could be hosting a semifinal, quarterfinal, whatever it may be. That is still big in its whole. But even for an economy wise, I mean, I already heard people complaining about the traffic and whatnot. And to be quite honest with you, I don't really care because I really feel as if that it's going to help the economy of the city. You're going to have so many people from all different likes of the world coming here to watch these matches here in Philly. I will definitely try to attend a match in Philly, but my priority, as you know, is to watch my national team, La Selección de Colombia, and hopefully crossing my fingers and knocking on this damn wood that they do qualify for the World Cup in 2026. But then I look at it back as you know me, like you just mentioned, the MLS. That's one of my main priorities. I love that league. I hold it true to my heart. And when I watch what happened in 94, the first go around with the World Cup in the United States, that started the MLS. If it wasn't for that World Cup, we would not have the league that we have here today. So now when I'm looking at 2026, I'm looking at that World Cup to escalate the MLS into being a respected league around the world, still not being respected as it should be, even though it is continuously getting better every single year. So I think this World Cup is going to be big for our city, but obviously with our American soccer, which is obviously important for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing with the United States has probably one of the better teams that they've had at this point. And
most of those players will be in their prime too in 2026.
Exactly. A lot of the guys are younger or not quite in their prime yet. They're getting there. They're starting their prime years, and they will be at the peak of their prime in 2026. So I think it's the perfect time. And I think the craziest part about it is, I guess it's not – Christian Pulisic is probably going to end up being the greatest United States-born soccer player of all time. He's a PA kid. He's about an hour and a half from Philly, and just – I think that was another big reason behind it was – it's just a lot of people are getting into soccer because of Pulisic. Being from the same area as him, I've seen soccer just has sprouted up over the last few years because of Pulisic. And he has made such a huge impact. And I think what's coming up with the this will help the MLS grow with the World Cup in 2026. And I think it's going to be awesome for it to see the Union and just Philadelphia involved in what is the world's biggest sporting event.
Absolutely. And I've already talked to some soccer content creators, and we're all looking at this as an opportunity for us to, hopefully make some money because, as the internet content creation keeps growing, they're going to keep looking at some of us. And so we're all just trying to put in the work for now until we can get to 2026, because that'll be really big for a lot of us here, man.
Absolutely. So they will be playing the games at Lincoln Financial Field, the home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go Birds.
As it's the biggest outdoor stadium in Philadelphia. Speaking of the Eagles got a new logo. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, I forgot to load it in. I was sure on time. I'll do that.
Oh, no, you're good, man.
I'm sure everyone's seen it. You've seen the Eagles new logo. What were your thoughts on it? I know it's just a logo, but everyone has to have a feeling about something in Philadelphia.
Right. And just to preface, this is the watermark logo. So in some merchandise, you'll see obviously the actual logo, but then obviously you'll have the watermark logo, and you'll see that on merchandising and such as that. And they obviously changed it up, and that watermark logo has been there since I think the beginning of the Midnight Green. But I put that tweet out, and I still feel like this. I feel like that logo is perfect for Philadelphia in 2022. I mean, I actually lived in Philly 2 years ago, And I lived in Philadelphia during the 90s. Like I was born there and I grew up there for a couple years. And it feels like Philadelphia in 2022. It just looks gentrified. That was the term that I use, and it's obviously a modern look, but you know that cliche, that saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's just kind of how I feel about this. And I just don't think it wasn't needed. But as someone who is, like I just mentioned, an MLS guy and seeing all these terrible rebrands and new logos, I think that's just the direction of sports in 2022, man. These logos just lack character. And they just look bad. They look like clip art bullcrap.
Yeah, I don't think. Listen, I don't think it was horrible. I definitely. I just. I don't know. I don't think they needed to switch it. I guess it was money. Probably they probably want to hear it is. If you haven't seen it, there it is. This is the old one with the spikes on the side, and now you can see the new one. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's one of those things that's just going to take time to get used to. My only thing is, I don't like switching things that, like you said, don't. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm very, especially with the Eagles, I am very, what's the word? I
Optimistic.
No, sometimes. I can't think of the word.
Hopeful?
Superstitious.
Superstitious. Okay.
So seeing the logo that they just won a Super Bowl with 5 years ago.
Oh, that's true.
Get switched for that. That's more what I'm scared of. And I'm sure that the logo has no impact on whether the Eagles are Eagles' success, but that kind of stuff just, scares me a little bit.
I hear you. I get what your sentiment. I just think that I'm happy they didn't change the actual like eagle head.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad that's still around, because that to me would be a problem.
Unless
They
they
would give us
to the old Kelly
or
Green
this,
one.
yeah, or if it's such a deal. But also too, like I think about like the Detroit Lions and the Miami Dolphins. Like they obviously changed around their animal a little bit, and I hate that. Like I thought the old Dolphins logo and the old Lions. Yeah, I don't think you should have changed those, and so that's where I would have been upset. But this one, it is what it is. You'll see it on merchandise, and I like the old
school
merchandise.
Speaking of old things, James Harden. It was announced yesterday that once free agency begins in about I think it's first week of July, first I believe it is. He will opt in, and the Sixers will sign him to a 2-year extension, so he'll have 3 years left in Philly, meaning that we got him for a short-term deal compared to the 5-year max contract that people thought he was going to get. What do you feel about that, Parcero? What are your feelings about the Sixers going about that route?
Yeah, so is it now? I'm hearing mixed things as well. Like now, is he going to? So he's picking up the option. Is that what is going on?
That's
so
what I believe.
47 mil.
Yeah, he'll get the 47 mil next year. I think he's signing. Let me look at what it's going to be. I just know nothing's official yet, obviously, so it could change. But
right. Yeah. No, I mean, like, look, I said that I think I wasn't mad at bringing back James Harden. I just, that money to me kind of hurts, and if he's going to be back on that type of money, I do think that means that you have to get rid of Tobias Harris. You just have too many. You need too many pieces, and you don't have the money for it. And if you're going to give that to James Harden, you just have no choice but to part ways with Tobias Harris, which I've already said before. I'm not opposed to it. I think best case scenario is that you do part ways with Toby, bring some pieces back, some role play. The emphasis it has to be the role players. I mean, you just watch the Golden State Warriors win with the deep team that they have, and obviously they do have some star power as well. But you here in Philly, you have and look, I may be biased, and it is what it is. But when you watch it, it's not far fetched. Joel Embiid's the best player in the league. When I watch it, when I look at it, Joel Embiid is the best player in the league, and it's just unfortunate you have not been able to put a championship caliber team around him, a deep team as well. That's really what it takes, and so I think that has to be the emphasis. But it's not the worst case scenario bringing back James Harden. You did see some good stuff, and possibly maybe with an off season where he can have a regimen, right? And I think that's important with some of these big athletes, and so maybe that'll help him getting into shape, staying healthy, maybe trying a new diet, maybe trying some other new regimens. It could possibly help him this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Sixers had no choice but to bring back James Harden. I don't really think they had a choice, and I'm okay with that because the thing, Harden's ceiling is so damn high. Harden's floor was also pretty damn low. So it's a pretty wide gap there. He does not need to be the best player in the world. He doesn't need to be the best player on the team. We just need to see the James Harden that we've seen in the past. We don't need to see the last few years in Houston, James Harden, where he's winning league MVPs and putting up 37 points a game. We don't need to see that. We need to see the James Harden that can show up in the big moments, that can run an offense, that can hit clutch shots, that can take some of the pressure off of Embiid so he doesn't have to have the ball in his hand every damn time down the floor.
Yeah.
The one that can help Tyrese Maxey progress into the superstar that we all know he can and will be.
Yeah.
So, and James Harden, this is, I guess, the first full offseason that he's going to really have healthy in a while to be able to get himself right and to get himself ready for the season. And he's going to have a full year with the Sixers next year. So I'm pretty excited for it. I'm pretty interested to see how it goes. And like you said, it probably means the end for Tobias Harris, which Tobias Harris was not a scrub when he was here.
Right.
But, things didn't work out the way we wanted to with Tobias, and I wish Tobias nothing but the best wherever he is next. But the big thing for the Sixers is they got to get some bench depth now. You got your core pieces. You got your Tyrese Maxey, your James Harden, and your Joel Embiid. Basically, in theory, comparing it to the Warriors, you got your Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and your Draymond Green. I think I already said Draymond Green.
No, you nailed it on the head, man. And I think when you're looking at this team, I think like the best way to kind of build this team for the regular season, I would look at the Suns, and I like the way they have set up that backcourt. And I think that Harden could play as that CP3 role, and obviously Tyrese Maxey playing as a combo guard. And we're all expecting Tyrese to take that next step. Now, there wasn't too many high of expectations going into last year because I think there was a hope that Ben would possibly play and we would possibly get rid of him and bring something back. But if Tyrese takes that next step, he can play sort of like that Devin Booker role. Now, I'm not going to say he's Devin Booker because D-Book is a special talent in this league. But I think come playoff time, you obviously let Joel Embiid go off, but the wings are so crucial. You need to find toughness. You need to find spacing as well. And that's got to be the key, finding those pieces on the wings, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I really, like I said, we all know who my biggest target would be this free agency, and that's Victor Oladipo. We know I love Victor Oladipo and his play style. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Sixers do this offseason. Now moving on to the last of our Philly teams, the Philadelphia Phillies. And you know what? You were on 2 weeks ago, the day that Girardi was fired, and I said that I believe the Phillies are going to turn it around, but I don't think it would necessarily be because of Joe Girardi. I just had a feeling. I was right. But I was also wrong because the second they fired Joe Girardi, they're 11-2. So clearly he had some impact. But you know what? I will take that 100%. Phillies now, where's your expectations lie? Where do you think the ceiling for this team is? Where do you think this team will end up?
Well, I'll say this. Like, obviously, we were wrong that Joe Girardi firing wouldn't get the most out of the team because obviously it has been. And I do think that Rob Thompson, with a little bit more of an old school feel, if I may say, it definitely has helped this baseball team. But I'll say this. There has still been some of those glaring issues throughout this win streak or this resurgence the Phillies have been on as well. I mean, obviously, we saw the other day where the bullpen kind of imploded against the Marlins on Tuesday night, the day after we were there.
Yeah.
And we've seen the bats go a little bit cold as well. And so that's that. I want to see how they look going forward, through a long stretch. And right now they're obviously, you get a series win against the Diamondbacks, great. Series win against the Marlins, great. And obviously right now I think they're taking care of business against the Nationals. It was a 4-0 lead in the second when I heard.
I know it was 4-1 in the third, but like I said, I couldn't take business against the Nationals. And I expect them to be sitting at about, what would it be? I think it would be about 17-2 over the last, by the time this National Series is done, if they do take care of business all the way through. It's 4-1 in the bottom of the fifth.
Right.
This team we've seen a resurgence. We've seen Schwarber improve. We've seen Hoskins.
18 homers.
Yeah, we've seen Hoskins. He is red hot. Harper is playing like at an MVP level again. Castellanos, he's struggling, but he's not playing. Castellanos playing well today, 2 for 3.
He was good last night too, man. 2 hits.
Yeah. No home runs, so nobody died. We don't have to worry about that. But Castellanos, he's not swinging about horrible. He's not at a Silver Slugger level, but he hasn't really needed to be yet. Didi Gregorius, he's played better. I'm not speaking on Dubal. Alec Boehm has been outstanding. I think Alec Boehm, something that goes unnoticed is his improvement in the field at third base.
Hell yeah.
Like, you saw that play he made. I know Rhys Hoskins didn't pick the ball like 90% of first basemen would have been, but that play he made was insane. You're seeing Garrett Stubb there, hit walk-off, run home runs, and then spike his bat and do whatever he was doing. I loved it. Bryson Stott's hitting the ball again. Is starting to hit the ball a little bit. I know he's struggling a little bit again now.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know,
Growing pains.
yeah, growing pains. But Bryson Stott definitely is showing sparks to be a high-level shortstop, and he's playing very well defensively. I know, or he's playing second the last few games, but the Phillies have it's just been all around a huge team effort for this team to improve. And
Right.
I'm loving every minute of it. And I still stand by what I said 2 weeks ago. I think this team will be a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, they have the talent for it, right? I think that at the end of this month, it's going to be a nice little early summer test. They got the 3 game set with the Atlanta Braves, and obviously they are literally the hottest team in baseball. And you've gotten some nice wins here, and obviously it's been to some bad teams. And last night after that 4th inning, the Nats literally gave up. Like they quite literally threw in the towel and just were over it. So that series at the end of the month is going to be tough against the Braves. And even before that, you got a 3 game set out in San Diego against the Padres, and that is going to be a great test because that's a team that plays some good defense and has some really good pitching. So it's going to really test the bats, and in turn, it's also going to test the starting rotation. Now, I don't know what the rotation is going to look like in that Padres series because I think that's like a week away, or week and a half away. But it's on the road. It's a good defensive team with the solid pitching staff. And so that's going to be those 2 series are going to be some good early tests for the ball team. Like, look, I really don't think that hitting balls out of the ballpark is sustainable. You got to find different ways to win, whether that be a low scoring game. You got to play a little small ball, finding those late game heroics, like you mentioned with Stubbies the other day. So the Phillies are going to get tested at the end of this month, man. And we'll see what they're made of.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Parcero, for joining me on this episode of the Sports Trade. As always, make sure you follow Parcero at Parcero Philly, me at Cole.tom, or look me up on whatever. And make sure you follow DSM on all platforms and all of our other members of the team. Thank you, Parcero. Thank you.